I really want to break down for you today in this simplest terms what I mean when I talk about energy and frequency, what it means to me, really not from this esoteric perspective, but much more from a practical and physics perspective, because that's what it really is. All of this is practical. It is the most practical thing of all. It has these practical applications and the ability to change your life when you understand it. Hello, hello, gorgeous humans, and welcome back to the Michael Edwards Show. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. I'm going to really talk to you about and break down what I mean when I'm talking about energy and how that relates to our authenticity and all the different ways in which our energy can be blocked. In other words, that we can be interrupting that true, authentic expression of who we are to be coming out. And I was having a conversation recently when I was visiting a friend with her friends that were there. We were all kind of sitting around and everyone was curious about what I do. And I was talking about how I've been, really shifting into this energy first perspective and really leaning into and refining what I'll call my gifts, but really are just things that we all have access to. And in that conversation, there were all of these different things that came up, from astrology to human design to spiritual gifts, clairs, reading energy. Obviously, talked about hypnosis and psychology things, which are also part of what I draw from. And listening to some of the feedback and the questions that were coming up really made me realize how much all of this can really feel divergent and feel confusing and feel like there is so much information and so many different things that are maybe in opposition or that don't make sense. And it was interesting because this person that I was sitting with was telling me about how, she'd had, I think it was an astrology reading, and it had felt really very reductive. And this person had been like, well, you fit in this box and you're supposed to operate like that. And if this person questioned it and the person who was doing the reading said, oh no, you're wrong. And I think there's a lot of that. I think there's a lot of can be a lot of confusion. I really do lead into the mystical side of what I do, because honestly, at the point that I'm at, that is where the greatest amount of growth and learning has been in more ancient traditions, in things that are beyond the, I'll say, limited logical perspective. And, I also am the magician archetype. I just am that. I am that in my brand. I am that in who I am as a being. And what I mean by that is it's someone that has this understanding of the unconscious realm, who kind of weaves in this practical and this very esoteric energies and understandings together in a way that seems almost magical. And of course, we know that brilliant quote is that anything sufficiently advanced, and I think it's any technology that's sufficiently advanced, will seem like magic to someone who doesn't understand it. And that, I think, is a lot of what happens here. But I really want to break down for you today in this simplest terms what I mean when I talk about energy and frequency, what it means to me, really not from this esoteric perspective, but much more from a practical and physics perspective, because that's what it really is. All of this is practical. It is the most practical thing of all. It has these practical applications and the ability to change your life when you understand it. And that has been the North Star of my compass this entire journey, is what gets the result, what's working. It's never been about like, oh, like, what am I interested in and all the things. And I mean, there's definitely been things that I'm pulled to, but the North Star is what gets the result and what helps me create these life-changing transformations in people's lives. So I'm very, very excited to have this conversation with you today. And we're also going to go into, the different ways that we pick up energies or patterns that really disrupt us being in this authentic, powerful state of who we are. So I hope you're excited, because this is going to be a phenomenal conversation. I already know. So after I had this initial interaction with these guests at this gathering, I, for the rest of the night, was in contemplation about how I could talk about this. And I was sitting in the hot tub looking at the water, and through the water, I could see the hot tub lights, which were blue. And so, of course, being the mind and the way that that's worked, this is where the analogy came through. And I started thinking about that blue light. What is that blue light? What makes that light blue? How do you get blue light? Well, blue light is just a wavelength from the spectrum of all visible light. We could say white light. literally a wavelength. In other words, it's a pattern. You can imagine the waveform that is the light, just like a sound waveform or any other time you see energy visualized. It goes up and down at a predictable, continuous rate. That's called frequency. How frequently that pattern of light goes up and down. And so when you isolate that frequency within the spectrum of light, you get blue light. Now, what's valuable about that is that when I understand the frequency, or in other words, the pattern that creates blue light, I'm then able to have blue light or not blue light wherever I want it. So I can create a filter to create blue light, like you can imagine the kind of, colored, I think it's like cellophane lens thing that you put on top of an old stage light. Of course, the new ones are LED, but a traditional stage light to make the lights blue. And then I can have blue light. I'm isolating that white light into the wavelength, the frequency, the pattern that creates blue light. And now I've got blue light. But when I understand the pattern of blue light, I can also block out that blue light. Maybe I don't want blue light. Just like with blue light blocking glasses, I can create another kind of lens that blocks out the pattern, the frequency, the color that I don't want. Now, what does this have to do with behavioral change and healing and energy? Well, it's very simple. It's all about patterns. What's important about patterns? Well, it's very simple. Patterns repeat. That's it. Patterns repeat. Patterns of behavior, patterns of thought, patterns of experience. You can think about this relational patterns, patterns in your work life, anything, right? And so once you understand a pattern, you can change it. Once you can change a pattern, you can create a new pattern. One of the universal laws is the law of patterns and cycles. And so what it means is that we will repeat the same cycles in our life until we change the patterns that are creating them. And so whenever we're thinking about energy, energy is always a pattern. Energy is never still. Any kind of energy, whether we're talking about light, whether we're talking about electricity, whether we're talking about the vibrations that we attune to as beings, it is all oscillating. It is all vibrating at a certain frequency, a certain pattern. And so under all of these things, okay, all of these things, astrology, human design, gene keys, psychology, any framework, attachment styles, any framework that you want to apply in the name of growth is for one simple thing. It's to understand a pattern so that you can change it. And the underlying thing underneath every one of those patterns is energy, because everything is energy. So when you understand energy and when you understand how to shift energy, in other words, to change the patterns, the frequency of energy, you can change everything else. Everything else. So a lot of people who have a level of awareness around this kind of work will think about this in the context of beliefs, right? So we can think of beliefs, the most important ones, as being subconscious, that are kind of a little below the surface. They're harder to detect. We maybe have to do some work. We have to use some tools. This is where hypnotherapy got me to, really understanding the beliefs that are under the surface. Okay, what is a belief? It's just a thought that you keep repeating, either consciously or unconsciously. There's that word, repeat. A belief is a pattern. A belief is simply a pattern that you keep repeating. That's the value in isolating a belief, because once you change the belief, you can change the pattern, right? Marissa used to say, one of my mentors, Marissa Peer, used to say, every habit of action is run by a habit of thought. And that's true. It's a pattern of thought that creates the pattern of behavior. And underneath that is a pattern of energy. Just like the blue light isolated gives this little wavelength, this frequency that goes up and down that oscillates at a certain frequency and repeats every so often, very fast, obviously, because it's light. It's the same thing with a belief. You keep repeating the same belief in your life, and that creates a frequency. That creates a frequency. There's a frequency underneath that belief, and that attunes you to something in your reality. It attunes you to a bunch of things. It attunes you to what you see, to what's available to you, to the type of people that a match with you, to the types of experiences that you're going to be a match for, because they're all on that same frequency. It's like looking at the world through those blue light blocking glasses, and there's no more blue. You don't see any more blue because everything kind of looks orange through those glasses, right? Everything's colored with this lens of orange. And the question is orange in this context, is that something that you want or you don't want? Is that abundance where I see possibilities? I see how much money there is just available floating around in the air that I can take, or am I seeing through the lens of lack? And I think that I have to work hard and there's a lot of scarcity and the world is going to crap. How am I seeing love? Am I seeing through the lens of beautiful, loving relationships? And that when we move into this beautiful, loving relationship with ourselves and we really uncover the truth of who we are and we make this decision and we do the work to be our full, authentic self in every moment of our life. And that when we are that, that we are going to match with a person, that we have the potential to match with a person who's going to love us for exactly who we are. Or are you seeing through those glasses of a lack of love where relationships are really hard and marriages fall apart and all of these things? Both frequencies exist out there, but it depends what vibration you're practicing, what habit of thought, what habit of energy. That's what a vibration is. It's a habit of energy, a pattern of energy that you're practicing. Your vibration is what you're practicing. And that is going to determine what you see in the world, what you experience, and what you attune to. And that's why changing your energy, changing your vibration has these incredible impacts on your life. And things often happen for people that seem like miracles because when you change your vibration, when you change your energy, you're interrupting, beliefs, thoughts, behaviors, actions, what you see in the world, what you experience, what you speak into reality, what you receive, the kinds of people that you match with. This makes me emotional when I tap into it. The greatest, and I mean the greatest thing that has come from doing the work that I do has been the people that come into my life. The people that I now call friends. Yeah, I can feel it in my heart right now. It makes me emotional. I am in awe, I am in reverence, and I have the deepest overflowing gratitude and appreciation for the people that are in my life, that are my close friends now. I honestly have to pinch myself sometimes. I cannot believe the people that I get to call my closest friends. They are the most unbelievable humans in every single way. And what's incredible is that I know that they feel exactly the same about me. They feel exactly the same about me. But I was not that by default. I had to do a lot of inner work. I had to heal. I had to resolve my trauma. I had to resolve patterns of behavior, patterns of thought, patterns of action, patterns of who I was being in order to become a match with those people, in order to come into resonance. But when it happened, they came so fast and so beautifully. And there was just this feeling of, you're my person, this omnidirectional feeling of, wow, you're my person. And I'm so grateful for you. And it just, you can see I'm like watering up my eyes right now. If you're watching on video, it makes me so emotional. That's the power of frequency. That's the power of energy. That's the power of this work of understanding the patterns so that you can change them. And it's always going to be at the deepest level when it's energy. It was funny. I was talking to one of my buddies about this, and he's been going to therapy, which has been a beautiful experience for him in a number of ways. But he had a session with me. And it was funny because he had been saying to me, well, I basically had a session with you because you're my friend, because you're my friend. And, you talked to me about all this stuff. And I was like, Buddy, you don't even know. You haven't even had 1% of a session with me until you've actually had a session. And then he had a session with me and he just was mind blown. We shifted so much stuff. We resolved all of these things in the past. We closed all these loops. We, resolved these childhood things. We broke him out of these patterns of thought. We shifted him in just completely new version of himself. And he didn't stop talking about it for weeks, which was really beautiful, actually. But he went to his therapist and he was telling her about all of these breakthroughs and all of these energy things. And I taught him a little bit about crystals as well. And it was funny because he said, I looked around her office and realized that there's crystals everywhere. And I started talking to her about this energy work. And she said, I actually, because of my practice and because of the governing body, whatever it's called, I can't actually talk about this with you in our session, but I will tell you this personally. I've actually done a lot of this work and I've been drawn to this kind of work and it's been really helpful. And I thought that was so interesting. And that was my experience as well. I came into this work, into this world through a more clinical approach to hypnotherapy. And my whole mindset when I came in is I was like, I don't want anything woo woo. I don't want anything, out there. I only am interested in what the science can prove. And this work has had to prove itself to me. And I've been results focused. What works the entire time has been the thing that's led me to the work that I do now. And the beautiful thing is, you don't really have to understand it, just like my friend, to experience the results from it. My realization of this truth has deepened recently. Nothing will be the same as a working one to one with a professional or closely with a professional who is just an absolute super specialist and a master of what they do. But there is always work that we can do on our own. And one of the things that is often the most valuable is having really honest conversations with ourselves about what we're doing. I had a client recently who came in and she has a service based business that relies on clients. And she was saying she's been doing really well, but she had a couple of difficult weeks, which I actually saw coming because a few weeks before that, she had shared that she had had more clients than she'd ever had. And she said, oh, I don't know. Can I handle this? What if it's too much? Which is a vibration. That's an energy that she was practicing. And then a few weeks after that, she said, now I have no clients. And I reflected back to her, oh, well, I'm not surprised because the vibration that you were practicing a few weeks ago was, I don't know if I want this many clients. What are you saying? What are you coding into your subconscious, to the universe? What is the energy that you're emitting? The frequency that you're attuning to is, I don't want clients, or I don't know if I want clients. And so what did she have a few weeks later? The match for that frequency that she's operating on, a lack of clients. And on that day, she was saying, oh, and this and that. And I spent all this money and I'm 50K in the hole. And I was like, well, whoa, 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 whoa. That's such a heavy vibration to be practicing. I'm 50K in the hole. And I immediately reflected that back to her and went, you're having this experience because of all of these things that you've been practicing. And this is something that really has deepened for me recently. I spent some time with my beautiful, amazing friend, Danielle Amos. She is a mystic money mentor. She was the protege of Bob Proctor. She's so incredible. If you want to be expanded in your relationship with money, like I cannot recommend her enough. But something that she constantly said to me is, results don't lie. The experience that you're having in your life is the manifestation of who you've been being, of the frequency, of the vibration, of the pattern that you've been practicing. And so I said that to this woman. I was like, of course you're in this situation because look at what you've been practicing. Look what you've been practicing in your beliefs. Look what you've been saying. Look what you've been thinking. Look what you've been emoting. And of course, underneath all of that is the energy, the vibration that she had been practicing, this practicing this energy of lack. And so of course you're in this experience. And now this is a very smart client. And I've been working, she's been in, some of my offers for a couple of months now. So she really gets this. And she went, oh my goodness, you're right. And so the next time I saw her, she talked about how she got out of that immediately and stopped practicing that. She shared that she got on the frequency of abundance, and she ended up feeling called to go. I think she said she jumped on a bus and went to a wealthy area of town and put on some kind of event. And lo and behold, she had clients again and she got back in that frequency. And of course, the more we do this more work, the more self aware we are, and the more we're willing to make changes to all of the places that our patterns, our frequency, our energy is programmed, which is going to be all of the chakras. I'll go through that at another time, but you've got like what you see, what you speak, what you feel your worth, who you're being, what you're putting your life force energy and creativity into, what you're connecting pleasure to, and then finally what you're doing in your actions. Those are all different channels where we're going to be practicing patterns, where we're going to be practicing a vibration in a different way that is going to be programming our overall energy or our frequency field. So, in just that simple conversation with that client about pointing out this is what you've been practicing, she was immediately able to change that paradigm and shift into a different one. And she very quickly, and this is the thing, reality will shift so quickly when you understand this and when you're able to change your vibration and the pattern of who you're being. And so to link back what I was saying earlier about astrology and human design and psychology and all of these different systems is that they're all valuable because they help us recognize patterns. But the goal is not to define us by the thing, it's to understand the pattern. Because when we can more clearly see the pattern, it always comes with coaching, it always comes with guidance. And so it's not, oh, I'm an Aries, I'm like this. It's, oh, I'm an Aries, I have these qualities, and this is the shadow of that, and this is the gift in that. So now that I have this awareness, I can shift my frequency, the pattern of who I'm being from this shadow expression, which might be, a lot of like domineering energy or whatever, and into the gift expression, which probably is going to be leadership or something like that. Same with psychology, right? Are you looking at these frameworks and using them to put yourself in a box and go, oh, I'm like this, I'm going to live in this box and I can only be this way? Or are you using them for self understanding and growth so that you can shift into a different pattern of being? Everything is about patterns. That's what underlies the matrix, I'll call it, of reality. Is everything is a patterns. Everything is a patterns. And once you learn to see in patterns, to see in energy, everything becomes so much more simple. You can see a truth that's beyond what most people can see. And even that's something that I've really learned to do, is to read people's energy. And that, again, people will call it like psychic or clairs or all these different qualities, but all it really is learning to read a pattern. And we all have this ability, right? So we all will say things like, oh, that person was a good vibe or a bad vibe. Just like an untrained person can listen to singing and go, that was really good or that was really bad, but they can't tell you why. But a trained singer, someone with an ear, a musician, can go, oh, well, they were flat or they were off pitch or that was a C sharp when it should have been, I don't know what it's called, like C major, C natural. I have no idea. But they can tell you exactly what's going on in the sound, right? To the average observer, we're just like, well, that was good or it was bad. It was the same with dance. I was a very high level dance teacher and choreographer. And people like my mom who would come and watch, or just general audience members, they know good dance and bad dance. They can tell, oh, that was a bad turn. They can't tell you why. Someone with the eye who's trained in that can say, oh, well, it's because they weren't using their abdominal muscles correctly and they weren't pulling up in their calf and they weren't creating space between their like suboccipitals and their shoulder girdle. We can literally see what's going on under the surface inside that person's body. That's what a trained eye can do. That's what a trained ear can do. And so, the same way you can tell if someone has a good vibe or a bad vibe, you can train that skill and to not just look at it as a good vibe or a bad vibe, but I can tell, oh, this is a pattern of unworthiness. This is an energy of whatever. This is an energy of shame. This is an energy of repression. This is an energy of lack. You start to be able to pick up on all of these different frequencies within a person. And it's a very easy, honestly, once you get good at it. Like it used to be this thing that I had to really practice. Now I can tell in seconds. And people are always shocked by that. I start my sessions now. I've had all this beautiful training of how to do these really long intakes, or not, they're not long intakes, but very detailed intakes to quickly get in 15 minutes to the gist of what's going on with someone, so you can start there and then dig in more with the therapy to kind of get to the root. But I don't do any of that. Most of my sessions now, my one-to-one sessions, I just start off with a reading and I say, this is what I feel in your field. And most people just start crying right away because broke through all the conscious stuff, all the stories, all the conclusions, all the superficial things, all the subconscious things, and got really right to the root of it. And then from there, it's beautiful. It saves me 45 minutes in a session of getting to that. And then we work and then we work. We're already in the energy. We're already in the emotion. We're already shifting things that are very real. And it's so beautiful. But that's come from me practicing my ability to read people's energy. And it's so incredible. And we all have this ability. We all get a sense for an environment, a person. We've all had moments where you think of someone and then they call. We've all had moments where we know a danger is coming and we're protected in some way, right? Like we have these extrasensory perceptions. It's just that we are not taught about them, so we don't put our attention on them. But just like you can train your ear as a musician or a singer, just like you can train your eye and your body as a dancer, you can train yourself to be more sensitive to energy. And just so often as it is, our greatest skills lie in things that were framed as weaknesses our whole life. I was always very sensitive. That's you're so sensitive. That's what people always used to say to me, "You're so sensitive, you're so emotional." Do you know what else is sensitive? Sensors, like the kind of sensors you put in a spacecraft and they have to be in a housing or, like on a military helicopter where they can detect a person, they can detect the body heat, in a forest running. That's a sensor, a sensitive sensor is what you want in those circumstances. That's what I am. I'm a sensitive sensor. I can sense things in people and that's unlocked my gift. So it's like, yeah, I am really sensitive. Do you want me to read you? Right? Like that's who I am. It's so beautiful. Now, how does this relate to healing and authenticity and moving through trauma and patterns that are holding us back? Well, it's very simple. There is a frequency or a pattern, a signature, I'll call it, to your energy that is the essence of who you are. We very often have these experiences and this awareness as we really heal that we came onto the planet in this pure, beautiful expression of who we are. You see it in little kids. When I used to teach dance, when these young kids are just so unapologetically who they are, and then we take on all this conditioning, these patterns that gets in the way of that. And so what's really incredible about authenticity is that they can use a machine to measure frequency, and the highest frequency, highest measurable frequency that comes off of human beings is authenticity. It's that pure truth expression of who you are. And I see this in my work. I've seen it for myself and I've seen it for so many clients is that when we're in that pure truth, authentic powerful expression of who we are, we become a match for all the things that we're meant for in life because we're living then authentically who we really are. Like, this is me authentically. I was terrified to be this because of all of the conditioning that I had. But I was like this when I was younger. I was always drawn to the mystical. People call, and I didn't put this word out there, people call my work, even though it's based in many modalities and tools that I've learned, people call my work the Michael magic. And you know what's incredible? When I was young, I had this thing inside me that I just felt like magic was real. But it wasn't like on TV, it wasn't like fireballs from your hand. It was something else. But I wanted to discover what magic really was. And to me, I found it. It's energy, it's frequency, it's this thing that is in all of us and that's everywhere. It's this underlying pattern of reality that we can learn to read and that we can learn to change. And when we change it, it changes our lives. That signature of who I am was always there. I just had to unlearn, decondition everything that got in the way. And so there are these different energies that we generally will hold inside our being that are competing with this truth of who we are. So if you've ever seen a demonstration of energy using water, you've probably seen what's called an interference pattern, which is when it's kind of like if you can imagine two raindrops falling in different places and the waves rippling along the surface at different rates and different intensities and then interfering with each other. So as that happens, in some places the waves are going to be really pronounced where two peaks meet, and in other places they're going to be really exaggerated where like the two bottoms meet. And then there's going to be other places where they cancel each other out, where a peak and a valley meet in the same place. Okay. And so when all this is kind of happening, there's this weird, incoherent pattern where the two waves are meeting. Okay. That's an interference pattern. That's what happens inside our being when we're holding different energies that are not in alignment with the truth of who we are. And so that's going to show up as these inconsistent beliefs, as inconsistent actions. It's going to show up as anxiety, burnout, overwhelm. It's going to show up as like switching back and forth where we're like, I'm this version of myself and then I'm that version of myself. I'm the successful identity of myself and then I'm not the successful identity of myself. There's like an inconsistency in who we are. And all it really is that interference pattern in our being, in our energy that's going to show up in, let's go through the chakras again, in our actions, in how our creativity and our life force shows up, in who we're being, our identity, and what we feel we're worth, in what we speak into reality, literally and figuratively, what we think, and how we see the world. Right. And so the more inconsistent those things are, the more that's evidence that you have not you energies that are in your body and in your being and in your energy field. Okay. And so the main places that this is going to come from are going to be your parents, right? So we obviously understand through psychology and healing, and I feel like the world is waking up to this, to, the way that we're raised affects us. And we tend to look at that only through the lens of the mind, but it's an energy. You've taken on an energy pattern that's not yours. So if you're dad really valued hard work and you had to be this certain way, then that energy, that pattern is literally inside your being, competing with the true frequency of who you are. Maybe you never felt loved by your mother the way that you wanted to. And so there's this feeling inside of you that you had to either switch back and forth between feeling like you have to prove and earn love or feeling unworthy. Well, those are patterns inside your being that are related to your mother's energy, that are in competition with this true frequency of who you are. And so with the work that I do and with energy healing, we can remove all of the energies in our being that are not ours and come back into alignment, into resonance with the truth of who we are. And the more we do this, the more consistency we're going to be in who we are. That's what authenticity is. There's a consistency and there's a growth. We're like inconsistent in the way of that, like from the practical sense, authenticity is a practice of being who I am each day as that evolves. But there's a consistency of I'm not this version of myself one day and then this extreme other version of myself another day. I become more consistent in all of the things that we talked about, in all of those chakras, the way that they're expressing themselves. Okay. Another place that we're going to really be holding a lot of energy from the past and from other people is from our past partners. And this is really interesting because a lot of the times we amplify the not us energy that's already in our field, in our body, in the relationships that we choose, right? So we're always choosing people based on frequency because, like we talked about earlier, we're operating on a certain wavelength. So partners that we choose, we're going to be an energetic match for. And so the more energy within our being that's not ours, the more we're going to be an energetic match for someone who's not a true match for who we truly are. And so this is why we tend to date people that have qualities that our parents had, right? So if my dad used to yell a lot, I'm likely to date someone who, yells. And it's, of course, we never see that on the surface, right? It's not like they advertise that on their first date. They seem great. And then 6 months, a year into the relationship, all of a sudden there's this realization, oh my God, I'm dating my dad. I had a really critical mother. I tend to date someone who's critical. This is what trauma bonding is, right? When we bond and we recreate the trauma of our past, it's all just energy. We're just recreating the patterns within our being, the energy, the frequency that we operate at, that we are an energetic match for in other people. And so we tend to, in some ways, make worse the energy that we're carrying that's not ours in these relationships, because a lot of the times when they blow up, these hurtful things that may have happened and that we have taken on from our parents get reflected back to us again. Maybe if we had a dad that always called us lazy, now we're going to have a partner that calls us that, or now we're going to have a partner that sees us that way as the not empowered version of ourselves. And we're going to take on even more of that energy. We're going to take on even more of that hurt, that wounding, that not us energy. And then we're going to form beliefs, which again are just a pattern of thought that are going to contribute to that. And we're going to go, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm never going to be lovable. My dad always said that I was this way. And now my ex partners, it must be true. And so we deepen that vibration, that pattern that we're practicing of who we're being. And then we're going to have the same thing with people that have hurt us, right? We're going to have people who have come into their lives, maybe they're colleagues, bosses, mentors, friends, peers, that we're also going to have repeated these patterns with because of the energetic match that we've been matching with the not us frequency, where we've had these different energies within our being where we're now matching with people. And so we're going to again play out patterns of hurt, play out patterns of betrayal, play out patterns where we're left feeling unlovable, unworthy, not enough, all of these different things, simply because of the energetic match of all of the unresolved things, all the not us frequencies and energies that we're holding within our being. And that's going to create this experience where we have these situations that, if we're not aware, are just going to reinforce these not us energies that we hold within ourselves. And finally, is the way that we feel about ourselves. So we're going to look back on our past through the lens of the not us energies, and we're going to see ourselves that way. So now I've had a dad who said that I'm lazy and I'm never going to be successful. Now I've had partners that have said I'm lazy and never going to be successful. And now I'm going to see myself through that lens. And that's going to become this thing where it's like, now I'm so practiced at this pattern that I see through their eyes. I speak through their words. I identify with the way they saw me, and I act in alignment with that paradigm. And this is the beautiful thing. I hope this is a breakthrough moment for anyone that's listening to this. That is not the truth. That is not the truth of who you are. It is simply a pattern, an energy, a frequency that you've been practicing because you did not know until now that there was another way. But there is another way. Your authentic expression, your authentic power. My whole life is dedicated to helping people shift into this frequency, this truth frequency, the truth of who you are. And anything that comes in right now where your mind says, yeah, but maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe abundance isn't meant for me. Maybe I'm not lovable. It's not the truth. Every single human in their authentic, true expression of who we are. And some of us are very, very far away from that. Okay. And all the examples that might come to your mind, look at that as someone who's very far away from their authentic expression. In our authentic expression, we are all a match for love. We are all a match for prosperity. We are all a match for all the things that we desire, and love and prosperity and success. Those things get to look different for different people. You don't even actually know what you want, what those things look like for you until you're in your authentic frequency, because it's like a camera lens focusing where there's all these things in your field of vision. And then as you focus, some things go out of focus and then some things really come into focus. And what happens is the distractions go out of focus and the true desires come into focus. But that only happens as you calibrate more and more to your authentic frequency and step in to your authentic power. So you don't even know what those things look like yet. So get excited, because the true expression of who you are is so beautiful. And the life that you will live from that will be and is so beautiful. It is so beautiful when people start to become fully self expressed, when we start to let go of all of these pieces that we've picked up along the way, conscious and unconscious, that are shaping who we are. And we finally allow ourselves to be in our authentic power, the full, true expression of who we truly are. It is the most beautiful thing in the world, and is what I am so dedicated to helping people uncover and become. So, something that you can even start doing now is, if there's patterns or things or experiences in your life that are coming up, you can take a moment and stop and really become aware of your body and see if you can find where in your body that thing is, that thought, that pattern, that whatever it is. And then maybe notice, whose is it? I'll tell you this, it's likely not yours. And even just labeling and recognizing what's not yours helps to really dissipate energy. It's not going to do the whole thing, but it's going to help get you started. So when things are coming up, when you're having an emotional experience, thought, a perspective, a situation in life that's really doesn't feel good, see if you can pause, see if you can tune into your body, feel what's going on, and feel what part of that is not yours, and let it go. You would be amazed the power that you have to change, but it's not the way that we consciously think of. Notice that nothing I've talked about today is about, all of the traditional approaches, which are very hard, they're very laborious, and of course they all can work, but they work in this top down way. I work in a bottom up way. Energy is the thing underlying everything, every pattern of thought, every pattern of behavior, every identity, every single pattern, just like that blue light comes from energy. Our prosperity, our love, our relationships, everything. It's all energy. It's all energy underneath. So when we work at this deepest level, it creates this domino effect, this ripple effect throughout our lives and can change so many things. So, if you're curious, I invite you to check out more of my work. I have many spaces from an entry level membership to my mastermind where I go really deep into this work and obviously working with me one to one. And then I'm also starting to have more live events and special events that you can come to. So, there is a ton of places that you can dive into this work with me if you feel called. But above everything else, I invite you to really start looking at your energy and the pattern of who you're being and asking yourself, who am I really? Who are you really? Because it's been there inside you the whole time and it is available and waiting for you to explore. The part of you that already is you is just waiting to come out and to have a celebration and to stop living in the closet, living in fear, living other people's paradigms and who they wanted you to be, and for you to just be in the full expression of who you truly are. It is magical. It is the most beautiful thing in the world. And you are beautiful. You are amazing. You are lovable. Abundance is your birthright. Remember that every single day, every single day. Do not live by other people's paradigms. Come home to the authentic truth of who you are, and your life will change beyond what you can even imagine. My name is Michael Edwards. Thank you for joining me today. I am sending you so much love, and bye for now.